Hey guys, it's me, Miss Lily, obviously. Can't really see you, but it is good to be communicating with some of you guys again. Um, so I have posted my office hours. I will be having office hours, which just means that you can join a Google Meet link that I'll post every day from about 10:30 to roughly 12 o'clock. And that would be mostly just for you to ask me questions and whatnot. I'm not going to have like a whole classroom or lesson that's going to be on Google Meet. It's more just going to be a way for you to communicate with me and ask questions that you're kind of confused on. I'm going to try to be as descriptive as I can with videos like this, along with, different, things that I'll upload and whatnot. So, um, the first thing we're mostly going to be working on this week is kind of reviewing some of the stuff you did over your spring break packet. I know it was a good amount of work. It was supposed to be 3 weeks worth of work, but I know it's kind of hard to understand everything when you just had to read about it. And I know some of you guys had access to the video resources that they weren't assignments, but they were just to help. But it's still probably better if I at least explain it to you. That's what we would normally do in class anyways, especially on some of these topics. These are some pretty big topics. I told you the Constitution is by far probably our most useful unit, and we didn't really get to round it out and finish it out. And especially in sixth period, we didn't even get through a lot of those court cases. I think you have a good understanding of what the Bill of Rights are, just maybe not so much getting to do the fun part of it. And I'm sorry you missed out on that. But another important part is what we didn't get to in those, what rights you have based on the Bill of Rights, but we didn't get to really talk about your responsibilities and your duties as American citizens. And I would arguably say that's just as important as knowing your rights, because all of you, well, you're citizens, I'm pretty sure all of you are citizens, but you're citizens, you're going to be 18 here in just a few short years. And some of these responsibilities that American citizens have, you're going to need to know about them. So, and taxation. Everybody's got to pay taxes. There are taxes that you guys currently pay right now. And then there's ones that won't kind of hit until you maybe buy a house or you turn 18 or when you get your first job. So those are what this video is going to concentrate on. It's pretty much over lessons 1 and 2 that we talked about. So just bear with me. We've got like a PowerPoint that I'll kind of be referring to as we go through some of these things. And just hopefully you get a little better understanding of both taxation and then your responsibilities as a citizen. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so let's go ahead and get right to it then once the PowerPoint actually loads. And here we go. So citizenship and taxation. So the first thing that they went over in the reading was what citizenship was. So when it comes to citizenship, and when I say it, I assume most of you are citizens, is because most of us fall under one of these 3 situations. So you automatically, when you are born on American soil, you are a U.S. citizen. That it actually doesn't even matter if both of your parents are not citizens, legal citizens. If you were born here, you do have citizenship, even if your parents do not. So American soil, we kind of talked about this when we talked about a natural born citizen you must be natural born in order to go off to be president, that just the 50 states of America don't count as America. Like any military base on foreign land is still considered American soil. Any of our territories, Puerto Rico is a major territory that I know a lot of us know about, but we also got Guam, U.S. Virgin Islands, and then, of course, any of these military bases that are in any country. Those would all be considered American soil. So if you were born on American soil, you automatically have that citizenship. Another way to get citizenship would be that one of your parents is American, already has citizenship. So those are kind of like guaranteed citizenship. You don't have to work for it. You don't have to take any type of test. You pop out and you are therefore an American citizen. Now you can get what you call dual citizenship if you wanted to have citizenship also in another country as well as America. That's possible as well. I'm not going to get into that. But that is kind of that guaranteed citizenship that you would have. Now, there's many cases where people are not born in America but want to come and live here for various reasons. In that case, there's a process that you have to go through if you actually want to obtain citizenship in the United States and be an American citizen, and have some of those rights and access to resources that a normal, I say normal, but a natural born citizen would have. So we call that process naturalization. And naturalization is just simply someone that wasn't born in America that wants to be a citizen of America, and it's that process that they have to go through before they're granted that citizenship. So the very first step with naturalization is you got to qualify. So in order to qualify to be a citizen in the United States, you do have to be at least 18 years old. You have had to live in the United States for at least 5 years. And of those 5 years, you actually need to prove that you were here in America for 30 months of that 5 years. So as long as you have a permanent residency in the United States for 5 years, you're going to be eligible. And the last requirement that you have to have is you do have to have an up-to-date and current green card. Green card is something I'm sure that you have heard of. It's mentioned oftentimes in TV shows and movies and whatnot. And what a green card simply is if you come here from another country, and whether it's just to work, or, to live with a family member for a little while, or you actually want to become a citizen, you can get what you call a green card. And that green card is almost kind of like temporary citizenship. So you're going to be extended a lot of the similar rights that a normal American citizen would have, but you are not going to have all those same guarantees. So a lot of green card holders, typically the ultimate goal will be naturalization to become a citizen. But how a green card basically works is it's not nearly as extensive of a process of actually becoming a citizen, but you get your background check, you fill out an application, you have like this short interview process, and you'd be issued this green card that basically expires after 10 years. So it's not like you've lived here for the 5 years and then your green card's done. You have to become a citizen or not and make the decision. You do have that 10 years and you can reapply, to get another, maybe an extension, another stint of, green card status. So ultimately those are the things that you have to have before you can move on, and actually apply for citizenship. And that process, and I'm really watering down the process, but essentially, the very first thing that you do is you're going to complete an application that's going to give your employment history, right? If you've been here for 5 years, what have you been doing? Some background information on you. If you have a family, what are those family members? Who are those family members? A little bit of information about them. And then criminal activity, right? You let them know anything in your criminal past. There's going to be a background check as well, so it'd be better for you not to lie. Once you've filled out that application, move on to the next step where you actually are photographed and fingerprinted. And then you will schedule an interview. Now, a lot of times we know and we've heard that we have to take a citizenship test in order to gain that citizenship if you are a natural born citizen. But it's not as simple as you just go to a room and take a test. It is actually going to be a whole interview process. I guess kind of like a job interview where you're going to take these tests that they've deemed what they feel is necessary to gain citizenship if you're from a different country. And one of those tests is that citizenship test. But before you get to that citizenship test, you do need to show that you have a basic understanding of English. This is something that you wouldn't have to do for a green card, but as far as citizenship goes, this is a process that you'd have to go through. So you would take a speaking, reading, and writing test. Now, this is nothing like the state test that you guys take. This is very, very basic skills that they feel are needed in everyday life. I think I read that as far as the reading test goes, you just have to correctly read one of the 3 lines that you're given. So to be able to pass it. So it's not a super extensive test, but they want you to at least have the basics and show that you have been attempting to be able to. I mean, a lot of things are in English in this country. Now, there are going to be exceptions to this test. If you have a disability, like a learning disability, they'll make exceptions because, even if you were born and immersed in the English language, you maybe wouldn't do well on this test because of that learning disability. So there are exceptions for that, to where, it's not a super stringent, difficult thing. Yes, you have to prepare for it. Yes, you have to study and whatnot. But I don't want you to think that they're taking a, state test. And then the final, once you've gotten through those first 3 tests, then you will take a citizenship test. And that's basically just 10 questions over a mixture of American history and the Constitution. It's going to be 10 questions, and you have to get 6 of them correct in order to pass that portion of the test. So it's a 60%. It's not like, you have to be an expert at American history. And I know 10 questions doesn't seem like a lot, but there is like a bank of questions this big that they choose from. So you don't know what 10 questions you're going to get. Therefore, you do see people really stress about this test and really trying to learn all that information. And it is interesting. I've had 4th period take the test or take the practice exam. They have practice materials and whatnot. And that's something I'm going to have you guys do as well, where you will take a practice citizenship test and let us know what your score was. Because if you get below a 60%, well, good thing you were born here then, right? No, I'm just kidding. All right. And then the very last thing, once you get through all that interview process, and if you can fail it, I believe it's up to 2 times. And then you have to wait a certain amount of time before you can, do the process over again. But let's say you pass first time flying colors. The last thing you would do is you'd go to the court and you'd actually take the oath of allegiance, not the oath of office. That's what the president does, but the oath of allegiance to the United States, in front of a judge to kind of show, hey, I'm going to be loyal. This is, a country that I want to be a part of and all that. So once all those things are completed, you would be issued citizenship. And yes, you were naturalized, so you weren't a natural born citizen. You can't be president, but that's pretty much your only limitation. You're going to have all those same rights, responsibilities, and duties as anybody else that was born here. So the question then is, why be a citizen? What is the benefit of being a citizen of the United States? Well, we know that not all countries have the same rights that we have. It has, we talked about that all through our last unit. There are countries where maybe if you're a woman, you have very limited rights. Or even, in some countries, almost anybody doesn't have some of the rights that we often take for granted, like voting, or having a say in your government, and this freedom of speech and freedom of press and all of this. So there are benefits to being an American and the protection that we have compared to, and I know that's a really weird time to be talking about protection when we're in the middle of a pandemic and we all have to be in our houses. This is a very unique situation. But when it comes to wars and things like that, there are countries that are way less protected than we are. And some people seek out the United States for those reasons. So there are various reasons why people would want to become an American citizen. So then let's talk about what citizenship entails. We've talked about your rights, your Bill of Rights, your freedom of speech. I've probably said them 4 times already today. So we know we have those certain rights in this country, but along with those rights and those freedoms that we're guaranteed, we have responsibilities and we have duties. Now, there's a difference between a duty and a responsibility. And that's what these next couple of slides are going to talk about. So when it comes to a duty for an American citizen is a requirement. It is something that there can be a punishment if you don't fulfill that duty as an American citizen. And then there are going to be responsibilities. These are things that you should do. You're not going to go to jail or get a fine if you don't do them, but they are things that you should do as a functioning member of American society. So let's first look at what those duties are. So these are things that you've got to do, or there can be a punishment. And obviously people get away with some of these things on this list. But from a legal standpoint, if you're caught not fulfilling these duties, there can be a range of punishments from jail time to simple fines, or even just being, assigned community service. A lot of times fines and community service come along with each other. But so there's various things that can happen if you do not fill these responsibilities. So the first obvious one, and the one that a lot of you guys on your packet said was the most important, was you're expected to obey the law. And the punishments for this vary. We know that. There's, things as small as fines or the community service. And then people get the death penalty, depending on what state you live in. So you need to obey a law. As an American citizen, you're saying, I'm going to obey the law, because who wants to live in a lawless society? That's not a country I think anybody would really want to live in. Not to say that people don't break that, but at least there's order and there's consequences when people don't obey the law. So as an American citizen, it really is your duty to obey the law. Attending school until a certain age. In Ohio, that's 18. So you are required to go to school and be educated. And if you don't, there is a punishment. I know students that have gotten truancy letters. You're not usually the one that's fined. It usually goes to your guardian or your parent. If they're not getting you to school or they're not enrolling you in school and the state finds out, that's an issue. So that is a duty as a citizen, is to send your children to school. If you want to have people that vote on a government, you probably want them at least to have a basic understanding of the world, so that they can be functioning in society. And without school, that is difficult to accomplish. When it comes to paying taxes, that's not something that you just have a responsibility to do. You have to do that. If you do not pay your taxes, there's a punishment. Now, someone like me who's not making a lot of money, I'm probably not going to go to jail for not paying my taxes. I'm probably going to be heavily fined. But there's going to be a punishment for me not paying my taxes. Now, someone who is much wealthier might get way harsher charges, might actually see jail time for lying about their taxes, not filing their taxes, any of the above. So paying taxes is a duty that you have. And we'll talk about why we pay taxes here in a little bit. Then we talked about this, at least those of us that got through the court cases, that a duty you have as a male in this country is when you turn 18, you have to sign up for the special service, or what we know as the draft. And that's basically saying that if we get to a point in this country where we're in a war and we don't have the military capacity to protect ourselves, then we can enact this draft, and it is your duty to serve your country. And when we talked about this in class, I kind of gave you the rundown that it's much different. The military is much different than I think like the last time we had to enact the draft. We respect our military service members way more. It is seen as a good profession to be in. There's more benefits than there were in the past. Not that those people in the past didn't deserve it. It's just definitely we've seen a shift. But that is one of your duties. And if you don't, you will get a letter in the mail within a month of your 18th birthday, basically saying, hey, you got to sign up, or, this will happen. So that's a responsibility for males only. But it is a responsibility for you. Then jury duty. A lot of people think that this is just something you should do, or they try to ignore that they saw the letter in the mail. But jury duty is a duty. You have to show up. If you're summoned for jury duty, you have to show up if you're asked to, and then they'll decide if they need you or not. Or you might be able to say, hey, I've got this, this, and this. I'm not going to be able to serve, and they'll take that into consideration. But you must call. It happened to me this summer. I was summoned for the first time, and I just simply had to call a number between a certain time on a certain day. And when I called the first time, they said, we don't currently need your services. Call back at this date. And so then I made one more call on that date, and then they said, well, they said, we don't need you. So I didn't even have to go to the court. I didn't even have to show up. I didn't have to go through the process of being selected as a juror, but it was my duty to call and make that call. There are some states that have a really hard time getting people to come and serve on their juries, and there's fines for that. I've seen states that will fine up to $2,000 for refusing to show up to jury duty. Now, these are for repeat offenders. These are people that have like ignored it multiple times. There's sometimes it can come with a sentence up to 5 days in jail. That's usually like last resort type of thing, or if the government really wants to, in that particular area, really wants to prove a point. But there is a consequence for not showing up for jury duty. So you must show up for jury duty. And that's important because I always think back to, if I was falsely accused of a crime or somebody committed a crime that affected me or my family, I would want people that are of my status, not people that have, been in politics their whole life and maybe know somebody that, knows somebody that committed the crime against me. I don't want one person making that decision or the same people just constantly making that decision. I want it to be of people that are like me. And that's what a juror of your peers is. And that's why you should show up. And then again, it's a duty. You have to. So, and then appearing in court. If you're accused of a crime, you didn't obey the law, or you allegedly didn't obey the law, it's your duty to show up to court. And if you don't, what happens? You get a warrant out for your arrest. So these are things you have to do as a citizen, or there is a consequence. That's different than a responsibility, in which these are things you should do. You live here, you benefit from a lot of the protections and the resources that we have here and the rights that you have. So some of these responsibilities, and there's tons, but these are some of the main ones, is you should be informed on not just issues around you, but around the country that affect the world. Most people say, this goes just to politics. It's not just politics, but politics is a big thing. You don't just go in blindly and vote for a president. You're not supposed to. That obviously happens, but you're supposed to be informed. You should know, not like a couple snippets of what they say, or who likes, or, your mom likes them, so you like them, or your dad likes them and you like them. You should know what they stand for, because that's ultimately the people that are representing you. So that's kind of a responsibility you have. Now, do you have to prove you do that when you show up to the polls? No, obviously you don't. But that is something that's a kind of a responsibility that you should take on yourself. Voting, that's something that you should do. Again, lots of countries out there that do not have the right to vote or have a say in their government, and you do. So why not exercise that right? And it's hard to complain about what the government's doing if you've never gone and submitted a ballot, right? So voting is a responsibility you have. Are you going to go to jail if you don't? No, but it's just something that you should do. You should be loyal to the country. And that's more going back to that treason. Remember, our founding fathers were like terrified of treason, people turning against us, doing the Benedict Arnold, being a double spy type of thing. So you shouldn't be trying to gain intel into the United States military and then go and tell the leaders of Russia, right? That would be treason. That would be betraying your country. So you should be loyal to the country in that way. You should testify as a witness if you've seen a crime happen, and you can be a witness in order for justice to be served. That's something that you should do. You don't have to, especially there are situations where that could affect your safety. And yeah, maybe it's not worth that. But for the most part, you should take that time to go to the courts and, give your interpretation of the events so that justice can be served. And then you should participate in your community. You don't have a set number of volunteer hours that you have to have, or community service hours that you have to have, like if you're a member of NJHS to be a citizen. But it's something that you should do. You should help out around the community. You should volunteer your time for a better cause, even if you're not getting paid for it, for every once in a while. It's things like that keep society going. We saw that after the tornadoes. We're seeing that literally right now. So that volunteering is going to be extremely important, and just being kind, respecting others in your community. You can completely disagree with some idiot that's on the street, but you don't have to make a riot out of it, right? You want to live in a world and embrace the community and your diversity, and it's kind of a responsibility. Now, do you have the right to go and yell at that person and oppose their views? Absolutely, you have the right, but it doesn't mean you have to. But, to each their own.